smelly and dry. It's like a bus, but it runs on rails, and the fares are twice as high. I can't even open the window to get some fresh air to my nose, except of course in the dead of winter when I can't get the windows closed. So it's hello diesel, goodbye steam. You had your day, old friend, now you're an old has-been. Electricity and no more coal, no smoke and white steam while the mighty engines roll. Steaming down the levels, will we ever see the like again? Singing round the bank, and yes, there's nothing like a train. A steam train. When I was a young boy on a train spotting trip to Crewe, I'd lean against the wall with a thermos flask and I'd watch the trains go through. Smell the steam and the coal and the smoke and look for the sparks and flames. Smell the smell of the lubricating oil, but I'll never see them again. Give us back the old black fives and take away the trains that smell like tractors and look like buses and sound like aeroplanes. When did you last see a semaphore signal or a gantry over the train? Or roasting coal in a firebox setting the world aflame? So it's hello diesel, goodbye steam. You had your day, old friend, now you're an old has-been. Electricity, no more coal, no smoke and white steam while the mighty engines roll. Steaming down the levels, will we ever see their likes again?
Steam locomotives have been with us a long time. The replica of Locomotion at Shildon in 1975. A lot of this program you're about to see was filmed by people just recording their everyday scenes, like these locals with a new car deep in rural Kent. Someone shot this marvellous sequence at Bodiam Station on the Rother Valley Railway. Note the ungated level crossing and the ancient 4- and 6-wheel carriages. And here's the train having returned. Mr. Liddell of Maidstone took a holiday film in the 30s in colour, which as you can see has almost faded away. But what fascinating pictures remain of local activity around this station. The Coronation Scots were blue, and something of their colour remains in this rare film. London 1932, and another home movie man is recording his local scene. Transport is his interest, obviously, and we think that this is Liverpool Street Station. The commuting scene has hardly changed, has it? In war livery of black, this A4 is on show. These shots are from a documentary on how a steam locomotive works, and perhaps the fascination for most schoolboys. Did they all want to be engine drivers? The late 30s saw many experiments in stock design. This is London Transport's 1936 Piccadilly Line train. The 1935 New Works programme envisaged many tube trains taking over local London steam services, particularly in the Central Line. The Battle of Britain is still going on overhead. The Second World War has intervened, and these buses show their white patches on mudguards for use in blackened streets. Liverpool Street Tube Station, and evidence of the war shows up in the little cardboard boxes everyone carries, containing a gas mask. After the war in 1948, all the mainline railways were united into British Railways. Passengers weren't too bothered. There were the same old queues to stand in. The railway worker, however, was going to see a few changes. A backlog of repairs and maintenance had to be dealt with first. The A4s, together with the A3 and A1s, including the Flying Scotsman, were the mainstay of express services out of King's Cross then. Modernisation plans brought the electrification of the Manchester-Sheffield route in 1954. Although planned many years before, this is the Class 76 testing the route. But in Belfast, steam reigns supreme on the York Road to Larne coastal route. In Britain, steam was on its way out. Steam depots dwindled as one region after another started to scrap their engines.
Steaming down the levels, will we ever see the like again? Singing round the bank, and yes, there's nothing like a train. A steam train. When I was a young boy on a train-spotting trip to Crewe, I'd lean against the wall with a thermos flask and I'd watch the trains go through. Smell the steam and the coal and the smoke and look for the sparks and flames. Smell the smell of the lubricating oil, but I'll never see them again. Give us back the old black fives and take away the trains that smell like tractors and look like buses and sound like aeroplanes. When did you last see a semaphore signal or a gantry over the train? Or roasting coal in a firebox, setting the world aflame?
It was going to be all changed soon as the first diesels appeared. The steam men would have to learn how to handle a noisy, smelly tin box instead of the breathing, living machine they'd been brought up on. While on the southern region, diesel-electric multiple units were taking over from steam too. Railway architecture would change too. This is Stanmore Station, designed like a church to please the local wealthy landowner in years gone by. The Harrow Stanmore branch in 1962, a quaint little steam branch somehow overlooked by the authorities. Here one could soak up the atmosphere of an old steam railway. It was all here, the smell of coal, hot sleepers, the goods shed, all restful on a warm summer's day. Then once a day, a goods train arrives. Everyone leaps into action. Most of the goods consist of bananas. The old goods depot is full of them. The line was closed 2 years later, lanced by a new doctor. His axe swept around the country, and many little branch lines like this got the chop. Actually, this railway was lucky. It was taken over by a preservation society and lived to tell the tale. It's the Rother Valley Railway, alias Kent and East Sussex Railway, alias Tenterden Railway. It's on its very last steam-haul trip down its entire route to Roberts Bridge. Soon after this, This end of the line was lifted. So soon it was the turn of the specials, last steam trips like this one at King's Cross. The A4s making a farewell performance. They had generally finished in 1961. Other locos were bought privately, some by holiday camps for kids to crawl over, others to go on display in steam centres, a new word in the railway enthusiast's vocabulary. But many went to the knacker's yards, a sad fate after giving years of faithful service to mankind. As the last months of steam on British railways went by, many a nostalgic visit was made to the last remaining depots still using steam locomotives. After that, it was banned totally, except for 4472. There were many well-preserved locos about, like this one, lovingly looked after by new proud owners in odd factory sidings all over the country. Looking back to those last years of steam, one wishes that there were more photographic records of these passing trains. At Euston, passengers had to pick their way through the debris as the station is rebuilt around them, ready for the future and the new electric trains. Diesel hauled now, but still needing assistance up the bank to Camden. On the Southern now, and plenty of steam about still. It lasted to 1967. Plenty of Bulliard's Pacifics threading their way over the busiest junction in the world. Just after this Class 33 comes the now restored Blackmore Vale, currently on the Bluebell Railway. How about some train spotting at King's Cross in pre-electric days? Signal box still there too. All this stock has gone. A Moorgate train pulls up at York Road Station prior to dipping down in the tunnels to join the Widen and Metropolitan lines to the city. With mainline steam gone, industry carried on using little tank engines. This one was used by the Royal Aircraft Establishment at Farnborough. Next, a little work shunter in a cable manufacturer's works. While in Wales, the coal mines still had plenty to use. This one at Pontypool, blasting its way up the unsteady gradients. In 1967, a new underground line was opened. A huge crowd queued up for the first tickets on sale, anxious to obtain ticket number 1, no doubt. Note the price. It seems so long ago now. The line was opened only as far as Highbury then. Eventually, it terminated at Brixton. As usual, things were not quite ready on opening day. A feature of the line is the murals, each one representing the local area. Slipping back a few years, we take a look at the Great Western Pannier Tank, seen all over Britain in BR days. They finished up on London Transport. They were used on works trains on the surface and metropolitan lines, carrying mostly stores and rubble to be moved to Croxley Tip. They had to reverse at Watford Station first to get around their trains in order to go on up the line to Croxley. London Transport had bought 11, but in 1971, when these scenes were filmed, just L94 and 2 others remained in use. Remembering that steam had pioneered the first underground railway in 1863, a final day's celebration was organised by London Transport in 1971, when steam traction finally ceased. So at Barbican Station, L94 making a final trip through the city tunnels. It was hauling a breakdown train which will run right through to Neasden Depot, where an open day for members of the public was held. Suddenly, steam reappeared in London, despite a complete steam ban by BR and LT. The King George V made a surprise trip to Kensington Olympia. After inspection, it returned to Didcot. Another final in London. At Victoria Station, on April the 30th, 1972, the Brighton Belle makes its last departure. This unique train, the all-electric Pullman Express, first entered service in 1933. But now costly replacements and/or repairs render the service uneconomical. The Jubilee line opened. It was supposed to be called the Fleet line, but it was so late being completed, they changed it to the Jubilee. Actually, it's just a new relief line from the old Bakerloo line at Baker Street, running to Charing Cross. Heathrow had also been connected to the Underground. An extension from Hounslow on the Piccadilly line went through Hatton Cross and into the very centre of the airport. BR trains from Finsbury Park, London took over a branch of LT's Northern Line, running to Moorgate. This was a year or so after a very bad disaster, with tube stock killing many passengers. (1976). It's the rolling out of the advanced passenger train. It had then a gas turbine engine, but later it was redesigned to be electrically hauled. In its final form, it was due to enter service in January 1982, but it failed again due to technical problems caused by freezing of the water turbine brakes. So back it's gone to be tested and redesigned. Meanwhile, the HST continues to give good service on the East Coast Main Line and from Paddington. At Paddington, it's spring 1979. Steam Power is back to help celebrate the station's 125th anniversary. It's the King George V again, which is going to run to Didcot and back. However, it ran a hot box and didn't return. These pictures by Nick Lehrer give some impression of the splendor of the occasion. A year or so before that, the Western Class 52 diesel hydraulic locomotives were withdrawn from service from the Western region. In their last year, they commanded a huge following by enthusiasts. 6 have been bought for preservation. The Deltics also went. On a gloomy Saturday morning at King's Cross, 55015 is to depart for the last time. They entered service in 1961. This loco, which took part in the Rainhill Parade in 1980, was prodded and peered at. Trains remembered indeed. Perhaps we recall steam trains best of all.
Steaming down the levels, will we ever see their lights again? Singing round the bank, and yes, there's nothing like a train. A steam train. Come to the country, see what you'll see. People polishing tank locomotives, people like you and me. People stoking boilers and people tapping wheels. There's steam building up in the country, in the Kent and Sussex fields. And it isn't just for history, and it isn't just for fun. It's just to show the whole darn world how a railway should be run. And it isn't just for history, and it isn't just for fun. It's just to show the whole darn world how a railway should be run. On steam, on steam, on steam, on steam.
In this, the second volume of Trains Remembered, we bring you a wide selection of trains from the past. From the camera of Mr. Alan Wilmot, the Marlow branch of the Great Western, they had to get in somewhere. After this, Mr. Wilmot visited Weymouth and managed to catch the one boat train of the day. This quaint train ride is still very much happening today, although a diesel class 33 is now used. Another branch filmed by Mr. Wilmot was this one, to Newport Pagnell. Mr. Ralph Cooper spent many happy hours here in 1959, capturing the smoky, grimy steam age. These pictures bring back many memories of grising and spotting at the platform ends. At Hatfield, a beautifully restored J52 is about for inspections. It finished up giving brake van rides. Nearby, a good spot for watching expresses go by. Some were in terrible condition. Back at King's Cross, a few A3s were about. Suburban services were in the hands of the immensely successful N2s. Up and down the two steep tunnels each side of the main station, they hauled trains from Moorgate to towns in Hertfordshire and Middlesex. Today there was trouble with the signalling. Trains were held up and eventually worked through manually. This suburban train came to a stop just outside the station. The fireman of a waiting B1 calls up the box to find out what's happening. The fireman, now satisfied, goes off to his B1, and the N2 restarts its train. The B1 now has a clear road ahead. Mr. Cooper's camera captures a long-gone steam age. An N2 is going to the coaling stage. They use this overhead machine then. Meanwhile, a trip through grimy Belle Isle and Copenhagen fields to find hand-operated signalling still in use. Mr. Cooper proved you don't have to stop filming at dusk. A rare J-35 trundles into the platform at Hitchin. And eventually, another turns up. Back at King's Cross, a J-50 has some vintage vehicles in tow. The third one is a 6-wheeled Midland and Great Northern milk van. In the Hadley Wood area, the main line was being widened. It's a nice place to watch trains go by. But big changes are around the corner. This is the Master Cutler from Sheffield. The last week of the N2s at New Barnet. The new one, English Electric's Deltic, on loan to BR for evaluation purposes. It was soon put to work on the main expresses. After meeting the crew and a couple of inspectors, we're getting a lift to Doncaster. The driver took it a bit easier around the reverse curves at the River Ouse. Now approaching a very steamy Peterborough. The crew watch out for water troughs as the Deltic uses water for its train heating boiler. The last somersault signal at Claypole. Now approaching the flat crossing at Redford. More water troughs ahead. This time some is taken on. Journey's end, and we say goodbye to the crew. Holborn Viaduct Station on the southern region. Underneath these platforms is another station, Snow Hill, and trains used to run down this slope, entering a tunnel. It hasn't seen a passenger train stop here since 1916. Freight trains used the route until the early 70s. Now BR is to spend £50 million on new track and trains for through running again from the Midlands. At the north end of the tunnel, Midland Region trains run to King's Cross and beyond. The line will be reconnected to them. The tunnel from Farringdon Station. A bridge at the other end of the platform, and a flashback to the last steam freight train to use the route. Roberts Bridge on the main line to Hastings, and the now disappearing DEMUs arriving. Also a bullet Q1. This was the start of the Kent and East Sussex Railway. This old film was taken on 9.5mm by Mr. Robin Doust, and it's worth using because of its rare footage. This terrier stands by a rare shot of Rolvenden Shed, soon to be pulled down by BR. passenger service ceased in 1954, but a steam-hauled goods train continued until 1961. A little diesel shunter came on duty. Soon the specials arrived. Locals waved goodbye to what seems like the last train on the line. A loco at each end, the Southeastern. Once the line closed, odd vehicles appeared, old steam engines. And this took to the tracks. The preservationists had arrived. After many years of hard work, money and enthusiasm, the line was declared ready for reopening to the public. In 1974, the ceremony took place. Mike Burgess reports.
At last, the official reopening. It was June the 1st, 1974. Up from Rolvenden came the motive power for the day. 2 terriers and Arthur, our spare loco, who had recently been completely overhauled and will run up and down the sidings for photo fodder. Cranbrook Town Band gave a festive air to the occasion, as number 10 received a final polish. Celebrities included the Mayor, Mr. Peter Davis, Mr. Benj Abbott, and the MP for Ashford, Mr. William Deeds, who was to give the main speech and then reopen the line.
Where the other day this morning, at the Septima, we will already be on.
Slowly, she steams forward for the opening ceremony. The traditional bottle of champagne across the buffer beam.
At the very best of fortune, one who may travel on her.
The christening is over, and our guests climb aboard for the opening run down the line. We come to the end of 13 years of struggle. Our story started in 1961 when a bunch of dedicated youngsters saved the line from the scrapyard. We've come through all the troubles you can name. Inquiries, discussions, objections, disasters, inspections, and lack of finance. The faithful few have survived all this and more. Today, the farmer's line has been reborn, and the Rother Valley echoes again with the sound of steam.
A steam train. Come to the country, see what you'll see. People polishing tank locomotives, people like you and me. People stoking boilers and people tapping wheels. There's steam building up in the country, in the Kent and Sussex fields. And it isn't just for history, it isn't just for fun. It's just to show the whole darn world how a railway should be run.
Another line to reopen was a section of the once extensive Isle of Man railways. The whole system had closed down for the winter and somehow didn't reopen the following spring. So after much reorganisation and finance, the section from Douglas to Peel was carrying passengers again. Our cameras visited the line again in 1971 and examined the line and the other remains. The line on the right leads away to the other parts of the island railways. What a sad sight this all is. Will it ever be restored? A change of scene now, just outside London. At the end of the Central Line, in pleasant country surroundings, is the Ongar section. With little passenger numbers and operating only in peak hours, it's in great danger of closing. A branch of the Great Eastern Railway Company, it was steam-hauled until London Transport took it over. Today, tube trains run into North Weald, although for how long is anybody's guess. The passing loop was taken out many years ago when traffic failed to materialise. These scenes were filmed in 1980. Trains used to stop at Blakehall then. They don't now. Today, the train trundles into Ongar Station, and the few passengers head for the High Street. Another London Transport steam branch filmed by Mr. Wilmot in the 1960s on the Metropolitan line, the Chesham branch. It has worked as a shuttle for most of its life. Steam traction ended in 1960. Some of the coaches went to the Bluebell Railway.
Oh, that's all come over the back, yeah? Going to that.
Ken Atwood visited Kingmore Depot in 1966. This was very near Carlisle, and there were quite a few steam locomotives around for him to film. Oliver Cromwell was here today. It's BR's 15 Guinea Special. Oliver Cromwell then ran light to Bressingham Steam Centre to retire from active service. Now the Woodhead route. The LNER planned to electrify the Manchester-Wath-Sheffield line before the last war. The work was finally finished afterwards. These are the EM1 Bobo type. They were filmed by Mr. Sean Davis in 1965. A second type, the EM2, was a Coco locomotive. After some years' service, some of them went to Holland in 1968. This route was closed eventually. The locomotives, designed by Sir Nigel Gresley, out of date in this high-speed AC electric traction age. In June 1986, the EM2s ended their days with the Dutch Railways. We filmed one of the last specials. On the Keighley-Worth Valley Railway, a snowplough is being fitted to today's loco. Corfe Castle in Dorset, back in time to the Swanage Railway. M7s are still in use. In 1969, online cameras visited the line. Now there are diesel-electric trains here. The whole area was covered with little industrial lines serving the clay mines in the area. All gone now. Finally, on the main line from Marylebone in March 1986, we bring you some of the steam trains running to Stratford this year. Here's 4472, The Flying Scotsman. The next Sunday, a return visit by Sir Nigel Gresley,